It started as just another quiet morning. The sun was shining over downtown Dallas, and the streets buzzed with people rushing off to start their day. Among them was Elijah, a delivery driver. He wasn't flashy or loud, but there was something about him, a quiet confidence that didn't need words. This morning, Elijah had one job. He was delivering to Bellandria's Fine Dining, one of the city's most exclusive restaurants. Known for its wealthy clientele and high-end dishes, it was not a place Elijah would usually visit. But duty called. His truck rumbled into the alley behind the restaurant. The air was thick with a sense of luxury. Even back here where deliveries were made, tall silver doors marked staff only stood in front of him, as if daring anyone who didn't belong to step inside. Elijah grabbed his clipboard, slipped on his gloves, and carefully stacked boxes of organic produce and fresh seafood onto his dolly. He knocked twice on the large steel door and waited. When it opened, a young man in a spotless chef's jacket glared at him like he was an inconvenience. Behind him, two other staff members peeked out. One stifled a laugh. The other rolled her eyes. "You're late," the young chef snapped. His voice dripped with irritation. Elijah glanced at his clipboard. His voice stayed calm. "I'm right on time, sir. Fresh seafood and organic greens, as requested." The chef gave a dismissive wave. "Fine, just bring it in and don't block the kitchen." Elijah pushed his dolly through the door. Inside, more staff turned to watch him. Some whispered, others smirked. Someone muttered, "Guess they'll hire just anyone these days." Elijah heard the words but didn't react. Years in this business had taught him how to handle people like this. He focused on the task at hand, unloading the boxes with steady hands. A sharp voice cut through the room. "Don't block the chef's station," barked a woman in a sharp black suit. She didn't even look at him as she marched past, clipboard in hand. "Yes, ma'am," Elijah replied, his tone polite but firm. Nearby, two waiters whispered and chuckled to themselves. Every now and then, they glanced in Elijah's direction, barely hiding their amusement. "What do you think?" one whispered to the other. "5 minutes before he screws something up?" Elijah pretended not to hear. He kept unloading the boxes, neatly placing them on the counter by the walk-in fridge. Still, the sharp remarks kept coming. "You'd think a guy delivering here would dress up a little," snickered another voice. Elijah glanced at his uniform. It was clean, practical. Perfect for someone hauling heavy boxes all day. He stood for a second, took a breath, and carried on. He was here to do a job, not win their approval. On his way back to the truck to grab the next load, a line cook whispered loudly, "Bet he couldn't even afford a meal here, much less walk through the front door." The comment stung, but Elijah didn't stop. He moved with discipline, ignoring the mocking laughter that followed him in and out of the kitchen. By the time Elijah finished the delivery, the chef Damien stood by the counter inspecting the seafood. "Is this the best they could send us?" he murmured, loudly enough for Elijah to hear. "If there's a problem with the quality, I can contact the supplier," Elijah offered, his voice steady. "No need," Damien snapped. "Just unload and get out of the way." Elijah did as instructed, but before he left, a waiter muttered under his breath, "Yeah, go back to wherever you came from." That was the final straw. Elijah stopped mid-step, his hand resting on the door handle. Slowly, he turned around. The room went silent. Every pair of eyes was on him. His voice was steady, but his words were like a bolt of lightning. "I came here," Elijah said, "to deliver something you all clearly need. Respect." The room stayed quiet as Elijah walked out. But the real surprise was still to come. Outside, Elijah leaned against his truck. He stared at the fancy gold letters above the restaurant's entrance that read, "Bel Andrea's." Few knew this place had a new owner. Fewer still knew who that owner was. What the staff didn't realize was that Elijah wasn't just a delivery driver. He was the man who had signed the paperwork a few weeks earlier to own this very restaurant. He didn't grow up with wealth or privilege. No, Elijah was raised in a small Louisiana town. His parents taught him the value of hard work, humility, and respect. At 16, Elijah had scrubbed floors and washed dishes at a local diner. He dreamed of someday owning a restaurant of his own, a place that treated everyone fairly, from the dishwasher to the head chef. Now, Elijah's dream was a reality. He had built an empire of fine dining restaurants, and Bel Andrea's was his latest acquisition, but he didn't announce his ownership right away. He wanted to see things firsthand, to know what kind of culture lived behind the glamorous facade. What? Later that day at 3 p.m., the staff gathered in the dining room. The air was thick with curiosity and impatience. Damien leaned against a table, his arms crossed. "What's this about?" he muttered. The restaurant's manager, Greg, looked just as clueless. All he knew was that the new owner was coming in and that everyone had to be there. The double doors opened. Elijah walked in, still wearing the same uniform he'd worn that morning. For a moment, the room froze. Damien scoffed. "What's he doing here?" Elijah stepped forward. His voice was calm, but it carried weight. "Good afternoon," he began. "Allow me to introduce myself." The staff watched, confused. "My name is Elijah Reynolds," he said, "and as of 3 weeks ago, I'm the new owner of Bel Andrea's Fine Dining." The room exploded in stunned silence. Damien's smirk disappeared, replaced by wide eyes. Servers exchanged nervous looks. Greg turned pale. "You?" Damien whispered. "Yes, me," Elijah replied. "And today, I learned a lot about this team." He paused, looking each of them in the eye. "I saw the way you treated me. You judged me because of what I looked like, what I wore, the job I was doing. That behavior stops now. His voice stayed calm, but each word hit hard. Every person who comes through these doors deserves respect. Whether they're a guest, staff member, or delivery driver, it doesn't matter. Without respect, this restaurant is nothing. The staff lowered their eyes. Shame began to replace their earlier arrogance. "I've been where you are," Elijah said. "I've scrubbed floors. I've washed dishes. I've done the hard, thankless jobs that make this place run. And I'll tell you this, it's those jobs, those people, that matter most." He stepped back, his voice softer now, but no less firm. "From today forward, this is a restaurant built on respect, humility, and equality. If you're not ready to be part of that change, this isn't the team for you." The room was silent, the weight of Elijah's words sinking in. Before leaving, Elijah gave them one last reminder. Respect costs you nothing, but its absence can cost you everything. And with that, he left, leaving everyone in the room reflecting on how they and this restaurant could be better. Sometimes respect begins with realizing where we went wrong. And sometimes a reminder like Elijah's is exactly what we all need.